to move on to something a bit more major than just where I'm fucking located without from this. It is the major updates.
That's self-deprecating humor again. I like that.
We're doing it. We've gone from ego driven to like just fuck ourselves. Let's go.
Humble.
Yeah. Well,
So the best thing about these major dates is we all have work for 2 more years, so everybody can rejoice. But
I did not think about it that way. Now
I don't
just
work
say
on the majors, Chads, yeah, because fuck people. But I'm in a situation where major dates don't actually matter that much.
Well, it's not really the majors themselves. It's the fact that with the
We've got
majors
something to
there,
talk about.
it's sustainable for 2 more years. At least from a standpoint of that. And I wasn't even worried about that, but this is just guaranteed that, right? So for those who aren't aware, for 2020, it's May 11 to the 24th. And November 2nd to 15th, and then the following year, May 10 to 23, and November 1st to 14. Now, some big questions that I have immediately is, the previous major that we just did was 13 play days, but there was a 2-day break between Challengers and Legends, and a 3-day break between Legends and Champions, which doesn't add up to 13 days, which is the amount of time they've allotted for these windows. Which means that do they want it to be a different format?
No, they specified that as well in that email. It even says it in the article where they basically said that they want to cut down. Well, they want to have more matches or more rounds played, to double stream more rounds than they did before, so that the Swiss format only takes up 4 days instead of 5. So that cuts down already 1 day. Plus, they want to remove one of those media days. So like one stage is going to follow up immediately on the other. I'm not sure which one they're going to cut down. If it's going to be, I'm guessing it's just going to be the one before the playoffs or before the champion stage, whatever. And there's only going to be one before the new challenges and one before the new legends, but whatever. I'm not sure about that. I'm just assuming there. But yeah, they want to cut down on the Swiss stages, which means 2 days are cut there, plus 1 day that's going to be cut from the media days. So that's 3 days. Minus 3 days from what we had before, which should fit into at least close to the 2 week. Well, should fit into the 2 week one. That's 4 days for one Swiss stage. Let's say a media day in between. That's 5 days. 4 days for the second Swiss stage. That's 9 days. Plus we have I assume 4 days for the playoffs.
4, yeah. So it's going to be close. It'll be very, very close in that regard. So that's a positive situation in a couple of ways. I think that the biggest thing it does for all the different tournament organizers out there, for all the teams out there, for all the people who want to work, for all the people who want to go, if you want to go, you know exactly when it's going to be. Maybe you don't know where it's going to be, but you know when. You, as a tournament organizer, will not book over those dates. You book around those dates, so we're not going to see any conflicts where you get like a DreamHack Las Vegas who gets absolutely fucked up the ass by E-League when they get the major, by not actually having dates cemented in the calendar. Just, let's throw we'll have a major here, and then you win the pitch, and that fucks everybody else. So those kind of things won't happen anymore, which is cool. It also means that first of all, I don't know the amount of times we spoke about major windows on this podcast alone.
Oh yeah,
when it needed to be. But
even before you guys came on the podcast, we talked about
exactly.
But this is closer to what I think we were looking for, at least closer to what I was looking for. I was hoping for June. November is perfect in my mind. And just to reiterate the reasons for that is I think that it's important to have a buffer period between the end of the major and the player break. There's no point having a major end and going straight into a player break, because then in the player break is what all the roster changes are going to happen. So it's good that there's this buffer period where the roster changes can happen after the major. People can move around rosters, and then we move into the player break. They can actually take a holiday and not have to worry about any crazy work stuff. For those people who think I have any interest in having a holiday, I don't give a fuck. I will work 365 days a year. So I'm just happy that the players have time off, because those cunts get stressed out or something playing a computer game. But I'm just trying to work out here if there's any downsides, and the downsides are tournaments which are normally in these windows, for example IEM Sydney, will have to move. That's the only downside. So if you're planning on going to IEM Sydney next year, it's either going to be before or after where it was this year. you'd have to be insane if you're a tournament organizer to schedule within these 13 or this 2-week period, right? You'd have to be
I mean,
fucking
it's not
meticulous.
even just these 2 weeks. It's a bit more. Like it has to be a week
minus
after,
beforehand
a week
as well.
before. That has to be empty. So
So how's
because-
Blast going to do with their 12 events?
I mean, that's a question. That's the
Where the
question,
fuck
right?
are
Where
the
like we're
events
gonna,
going?
yeah.
Maybe they can put one in the start of the week and then one next at the end
Yeah,
of
exactly.
the week.
Well,
I don't know.
one downside to it, especially for the May one that you were talking about, is the events that follow that are probably going to be delegitimized by the major, just because of how the scene tends to change right after majors a lot of the time. There's no specific window right after a major where people can change. So they will have to do it like during the tournaments or skip tournaments after that to make the changes, or just play tournaments with a dead lineup, which is the issue that I have with it, and why I would have preferred to just go out with a bang every time and to just have it like in December and in July, and then like have the proper like vacation time in August and like at the end of December for Christmas and like start of January basically. So I would have preferred that, but at the same time I kind of understand like the point of why it is how it is now.
There's a looser option though, right? Like that just means that TOs have to loosen up their roster rules, right? Like
Well,
for example,
that's not what my issue with it is though. I'm just talking about how
I mean like the level of Counter-Strike.
yeah, exactly, what kind of Counter-Strike is going to be played at those events where we know that maybe like 4 to 5, 6, whatever, even half the teams might be changing rosters like right after the tournament. So that's the issue that I have with
But
it.
why would they wait? Like teams can just change after the major.
Not wait, but it's still even when they go right into the next tournament, and you know there's going to be a tournament right after the major. Like within 10 days of the major, there's probably going to be another tournament. Given what we know about like how many events there could be, like you know there's going to be an event there, and that just gives the team who's going to change after the major basically no time to prepare for the event, and that just creates the same issue that I was talking about before. A team that's probably not going to be prepared enough to play that tournament. So. Yeah.
Hopefully it's a Blast event, so no one will care. Just bagging on Blast because that is very popular with the kids on Reddit.
Seems to be pretty popular at this point.
But like seriously though, if you have like 1 or 2 events with one event with a few dead rosters, and then maybe one roster with a fresh change, like it's not going to be that big of a deal. At least we have the first 5 months where people can actually set their rosters, presuming like it's going to be like shuffle season is going to be as it was 2 years ago in like end of December, start of January. And then we have like ESL Pro League, ECS, stuff like that rolling before the major. And then maybe we get the finals of them like after the major, like right after the major. That's probably what we were going to be seeing in the first half, and the second half, maybe, I don't know, maybe it's going to be a bit different. But then like August off, and August being the whole month for like changes and stuff like that. So you have the major and 2 more months max of play after.
But I don't think that's going to happen though at this point, just because of what I outlined. Like that's too much time after the major. Like imagine if it was August, like that's 2 months after the major ends. Like over 2 months after the major ends, the teams they're going to start changing lineups. I don't see that happening.
Do you think the major is that important that people are going to be like as it was before? That is like the make or break. So if
I guess it isn't anymore, but it's still like the biggest thing that you want to attend, and most teams will still consider making changes afterwards, after they fuck up a major or something. Like look at what FaZe did at PGL major or whatever, made changes immediately after, and stuff like that just kept happening. Even like more recently, right after majors, they wanted to make changes or they couldn't because of something. Or they went into the major with a dead lineup already, so they made changes right afterwards. So that's the problem that I have. It's just like the off season was basically created for multiple reasons. One of which was to have a window where all teams would be able to make changes without like any like limitations and like other events going on, and teams like being limited that way and just like entering tournaments, so they don't want to make changes like 2 days before they have to fly somewhere. So that's the big problem that I have with like the dates that are now.
Yeah, would be. But at the same time, if it was I don't know, end of start of like July, then which would be kind of the perfect time to have the major, then it was just shit on Cologne. Because I think that is something that Valve also wanted to avoid, like to avoid these like staple tournaments which exists for like 5 years now.
Well, I mean, at the same time, like if Cologne was the major, that would have been fucking perfect.
But why would you make Cologne a major if it's like legendary?
It doesn't need to really be.
Yeah,
I
it's
guess
just a
it
waste.
doesn't need to be, but I guess it's just like gonna ramp it up because it's already proven. I feel like that's the thing. Like, I don't think making completely new tournaments majors is a good way to go in that sense. Like, I would much rather have something established as a major than tournaments. Obviously, like, well, PGL major, I guess, worked and didn't work. Like, it obviously filled, and the audience was there and everything, but there were other issues. And that's kind of why I think, like, putting new tournaments on, like, whatever, unscouted locations, like untested locations and stuff for a completely new major is not a good way to go either. So I would much rather have Cologne as one.
Do we think that in terms of, obviously, Blast as an example, right, they'd be a set that are up to do the major? Because how they run an event in terms of what it looks like, the production value, blah, 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 is fantastic. So do you think that's something they'd go for, given the fact that most of their events are just, what, 2 days?
I don't think Blast can run a major.
Oh, really?
I don't think they're allowed to.
Because of the whole Astralis. Right? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if that's true.
I feel like that would be.
That would make logical sense.
That would make a lot of sense, just
like,
because of how.
I'm honestly just thinking if they're doing 12 events, they're basically. And that means either way they're going to hit the major and they're fucked in some way.
I mean, that thing
probably
that
not at this point because they know what the dates are. Like, they're going to move it.
Yeah, hopefully they plan around. That's what I was trying to think though.
It's a year.
If
out,
the information
man,
on there says. If it says 12 events, right, then I'm thinking, well, have they got a major? Do they think they're getting a major?
It says 8 to 12, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's just give a bit of context. The thing that Banks the thing that Banks is referring to is Sadok's tweet that he said Blast are planning 9 to 12 events in the next year. But also they planned 6 or 7 events in 2017, more. But they had 3. So it's not like guaranteed that they will have that many. It's like it's a plan. It's what they kind of want to do, but at the same time, and that is just unsourced, according to sources by Sadokis. So it doesn't need to be exactly correct. Not saying he's lying, but just like it's not that Blast came out and said we have 12 events in 2019. It's a bit of a different story.
Yeah, but I mean, if it is 12, it's going to be a clusterfuck of events, and it's just going to be worse than it is now, with like people skipping tournaments like Cologne for Blast, which is obviously not great. It's just because of what we were talking about, how like established some of these events are and prestigious.
If it is 12 events though, right, one would assume that it wouldn't be the same teams.
They
would have to open it up, right? They'd have to open it up. It'd have to be like 12 teams. Like, it couldn't just... I'm not saying 12 teams at every event. I'm saying that they'd probably still have like a similar format, but there's no way you could keep it to the same...
Yeah, they can't have their signed teams on it, can they? They have to either open it up or do qualifiers or something.
I mean, they don't have... They can just expand from 7 to 12.
Yeah.
Teams in their league. That's probably... I mean, that is something that they did talk about in that interview that we had with a VP of whatever, something, from Blast. I don't know, VP of something, not marketing. Jordy. Good old Jordy.
Thing is, right, like this whole discussion that's going on where everyone's starting to hate on
How could
Blast.
I know that? That's literally a made-up term.
But this whole thing where everyone's starting to hate on Blast, I don't think the hate's necessarily needed in that sense, because I think we had this discussion before, didn't we? And we're about to go into talking about Madrid, but the events themselves, they are entertaining. They serve the purpose they do. We do get some good games, at least when it gets to the grand finals, but I mean, it's like
the issue is the prestige, right? Because like everybody knows that it's kind of like an off tournament, nobody necessarily cares about well, especially from the outsider's point of view, I guess. The teams themselves, I imagine, like when they win, it obviously means to them as much as it would probably any other.
But when they lose, it doesn't matter as much. Of course, when you win, everything is like...
Yeah, exactly. They're not going to be too bummed out about losing a couple of best of ones. That's the thing. Like that just takes away so much from the prestige. And for teams to prioritize those events over staples like Cologne, like a Sydney or whatever, that's obviously a bad thing for the entire scene, because those events are the ones that everybody's going to look at and just like draw things from. So that's the issue that
that's my biggest issue as well. Is I just don't want like that whole thing. If Team Liquid miss Cologne, for example, that would suck so bad.
Exactly. Like Cologne has always been a great event. Like sure, like
Cologne is
skipped it once, like
every
3 years ago
time
or whatever. It's always a great tournament. It's like we say, it always fills up.
Astralis skipped Cologne because of the major.
Yeah.
That's different.
That is like
That's what
I'm
not a
saying. That's what I'm
comparable.
That
saying.
makes perfect sense.
Sure,
That's
sure,
a
sure.
logical decision.
I just threw it out there just because like obviously
Yeah,
Cologne has
yeah,
not
fair.
always had the best teams always, but most of the time they have, and it's always made a great event. So
Yeah, and I also like we did talk about Cologne potentially missing Liquid, and that is not yet confirmed, but they haven't been invited. There's only one invite left. And like judging on how usually ESL and all of these companies do like announce their invites, they would announce Liquid by now. But let's just say they don't show up, they're not gonna be coming because they have Blast like the next week after Cologne. I do not understand that. Like I literally do not understand that.
I mean,
if
you
it
have
was,
to assume
if
that
it
they
was
are-
Blast first and then Cologne, that you literally have to fly from Blast into an event, then I would kind of understand. But you don't even have to prepare for that Blast event. Like you just have to play it, right? It's not
Just
that
turn up.
important as an event, as we already managed to like reestablish that. Like you have the event before Cologne, you go hard for that, you prepare for that, you play it, and then you fly home. It's LA. It's literally their home. So they have like 3 days until the event. Like why is it such an issue? I don't.
I mean, you almost have to assume that it's something contractual, but I mean, I don't want to point to that because like we obviously
But
don't have any.
they're not the only team at Blast LA that is going to be playing at Cologne.
Sure.
They're surely not.
But I mean, they are the home team though for Blast LA, so they might be like different circumstances around like different teams depending on what the location
Chicago's
is.
the week later, right?
Sorry.
Chicago is the week after. So if
Yeah, I think so.
but for the thing is, for all of these teams, Chicago, for all the teams we're talking about, that will be the last event for them before the major, right?
Yep.
That will be
Well,
it.
How many months is that?
We don't know about that. It's just July. Well, it's the end of July, basically, like the
Well,
second
it will
half
be-
of July.
I'm
With
te-
8 teams, though, like we don't. I don't think we assume that to be a massive event.
I'm not saying every team in Chicago. I'm just saying the teams that we care about, right?
Oh, okay.
For example,
Cool.
let's say that NRG went to Chicago,
They're-
right?
they're
But they can't
at the
with
minor, yeah.
So cancel that. That makes no sense. So then, Cloud9 could be a team who's going to be at Chicago, for example.
Yeah.
Like they won't play. Well, they don't even have a major slot either.
If they can, yeah.
Yeah, holy
that's the
shit.
thing, we don't know.
Yeah, fuck that as well.
It gets wild.
So like, I think-
Liquid has to be there.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like Liquid is is going to carry that event if they are going
yeah,
there.
so it's just wild to think, right? Like, if that's the case, Cologne is the biggest event before the major, and you still have 2 months from Cologne until the major. So it's like what they're going to compete in from that point onwards just feels like lackluster, right? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like if you're going just to appease fans, then that's an organizational decision. Like if I am the players in Team Liquid and you get the opportunity, because if this is true, if this is the case, we won't see Team Liquid versus Astralis other than potentially Pro League finals. Are they both in ECS?
Yeah.
Okay, so we have ECS and we have Pro League finals.
Wait. Liquid, but they have to qualify from like the last 2
Okay, never mind.
things,
Then
so
they
maybe
probably
not
won't qualify.
that.
So
Yeah.
the only opportunity would be Pro League finals, which is in the first week of June. So it's not the end of the world, and it's cool that we're not getting the same as last year, which was just them in every single grand final next to each other. But it's also just disappointing because the hiatus between those events is quite an extensive period of time. And if they're the best 2 teams, it just really sucks. Like there's a probability that Navi don't qualify for Pro League finals as well. Ants definitely won't be at Pro League finals because they're not in Pro League. So we're just not going to get all of the best teams in the same event until the major. Like that is 100% the case. If Liquid
It's literally
do not go
between
to
the two
Cologne.
majors 0 events with the top 5 teams.
It's just it's wild. Like that really sucks because I think that like if it happened once every 3 months, then yeah, that wouldn't be too bad. But like that is quite a long lead in time, and then you think if that happens again towards the end of the year, considering how long it's going to be from the Berlin major until the next major, and they have a similar scenes, then that's just fucking wild. Like that's insane how long that could be of a break between those things. So I think all in all,
It's 8
like,
months, isn't it? Then
Yeah.
it should be like 8 months.
Yeah, so I get why teams want to skip events and take time off and do all that kind of stuff. I understand it. Like I get it. But there's taking the piss, and then there's like actually taking a break. And if I was like, this is the only way that this makes sense. The events that these teams are choosing to attend, whatever they are, whether it's a ESO, whether it's a DreamHack, whether it's a Blast, it doesn't matter. The people who are benefiting out of this has to actually be the organizer. The organization, right? Like Team Liquid as an organization, or Astralis as an organization. It can't actually be the players, because if anything, they're losing ground. Like, because the community looks at it and goes, well, that's shit. Like, the community looks at it and blames them. So the people, someone's making money here, right? And that's the only reason that these decisions are happening in this way. So I don't know. It's just the way it is, I suppose. And the community in the past has been able to bully TOs into changing things around. Maybe some things not so good. Like, for example, I think they pushed ESL into a position where ESL do anything to appease the players sometimes. And I don't think that's necessarily a good thing. Like, I think ESL should probably have a little bit more power sometimes. Whether we see what happens right now with the whole Blast situation, if that has any effect on if they change their format or anything along those lines, I guess they're in a different situation because they already have the teams contracted, where ESL didn't have that when the whole Wesser thing was happening, right? Like PEA is another example. They didn't actually get to the stage where they already had their hands on it. They were still trying to get there. So it's going to be interesting to see how the landscape unfolds, but at least they're, like, this is such a shit thing that I'm about to say, but at least there are Counter-Strike tournaments. That's such a shit thing to say, but like that's one way to look at it.
There's not going to be a lack of CS. It's just the quality of CS so that could definitely be improved with some of these top teams missing, like either Liquid or Astralis, who are pretty much undoubtedly the top two teams at this point.
Yeah.
So for one or the other to be missing almost everywhere, and not have like the continuation of that rivalry and potential for Liquid to finally take that step forward and take down Astralis, for that not to happen like until the major. Sure, it kind of like, I guess it helps the major a little bit just for us to get that culmination, hopefully, because like obviously, as you say, we won't get that duel until the major.
The likelihood of us even getting it at the major, though, is another thing.
That's another thing. Like, unless they meet in the final, we don't know about that.
Yeah. That's going to be a best of three. I know you guys fucking love best of threes, but fuck y'all.
Yeah, prof.
Imagine the face of major. The face of major is a pretty good example of that, right? Like we all thought.
Good thing about best of fives.
What, like the city one we just saw, for example?
Yeah, the great example. So good, but I talked to Twist, and he said like, oh, I asked him about best of fives. He said like, oh, it's a true test of like who's the better team. But then in the same interview, he says it's better that we lost Dust 2 16-6 because then we saved energy. Like, how can a competitive format, how can it be good for you to lose quickly? That it literally is counterintuitive.
I